I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest. Today we're talking with Paula Oddy, Technical and QMS Program Manager at Intertek. Paula, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure as well. Well, our topic today is corrective action. So let's dive right in and start with the basics. What does it mean to take and implement a correction?
And this is one that really gets a little bit confusing in the industry, so it's worthwhile to take some time to talk about it. Whenever there is a nonconformance written, it's written to a specific issue. Let's say, for an example, a caliper was found not calibrated. The correction part of it is fixing that immediate issue. What did we do to fix that caliper? It's not the same as fixing the corrective action, the system. It's containment. It's what we did to fix the isolated issue. Over the last couple years, in the QMS, EMS, OSAS standards, it's becoming more and more prevalent to be sure that clients are taking good correction. I like to refer to it as stop the bleeding. We have a problem. How did we stop it?
And in terms of verification, this is a very important part of this. So when you look at stopping the bleeding and verification, how do you actually know that a correction is effective? And what is important, why is it important to verify that a corrective action plan is effective in the first place?
Exactly, and let's get into corrective action and verifying effectiveness, and something that sometimes gets missed in the client base, but corrective action verification of effectiveness is 6 months from now, 90 days from now, 30 days from now. The fix that we put in, is it still preventing that problem to reoccur? What often happens with a not correct verification of effectiveness is we upgraded a procedure, let's say as an example, and we trained a couple operators. But we don't take it deep enough to make sure we got into the system to make sure that the evidence supplied shows that this problem is not going to come back. That's one that's really missed in the world today of corrective action.
But I mean, the question is really, what do you do to prevent that? I mean, it's kind of a natural thing that systems are going to kind of default back to their normal state. So if you do find that, what do you do? What do you do as an auditor, and what does the person within the organization do to bring it back to where it should be?
So in the case of if I've got my auditor and I got my auditor hat on, let's say, I'm at a client's and we're going to actually walk through and sample to gain evidence that the problem, whatever we stated in the corrective action, has been eliminated. So let's take it as an example. We had the specific instance of the caliper and we took correction, okay? We fixed that caliper. But what did they do to fix the system? Okay, so I'll just use a root cause. They didn't have enough trained operators, let's say, or they didn't have a gauge track system. So I'm going to go through and sample other gauges, evidence, etc., to make sure the system was fixed. I'm not just going to focus on that caliber. I'm going to go far and wide to take objective evidence. In God we trust, all others show me, that we've fixed and prevented this problem from recurrence.
So what is most often misinterpreted as a verification of effectiveness with regard to a correction?
And that's a great question, because what's often misinterpreted in the auditing world is clients always think, not always, sorry clients, love you to death, they have the interpretation that the auditor will verify the effectiveness. That is true. When we come back a year later, we'll sample and make sure the problem's eliminated. But the client also has to do that same duty. So they can't just say, we identified the procedure and we've trained the people and we've cleaned or calibrated the caliper. They need to show evidence how they verified. So how they checked other gauges, how they checked other samples. A lot of times this is found in their internal audits. They'll actually have, as part of their internal audit, verification of effectiveness. They'll say, okay, this was a previous finding. Let's go through and make sure it's still fixed and it's where it needs to be. But a lot of times a client may have the understanding that the auditor a year later will take that deep dive in verification. And it really is twofold: client, then the auditor.
And I like the way you put that, because I think it's important is to remember that this isn't a one-size-fits-all, right? I mean, every individual client is going to deal with this in their own way that suits their industry, their type of company, et cetera.
Absolutely, and that there's another great point, because the size of the industry, when we talk about the mom and pop shops, they might not have the expertise in the corrective action, so they may need a little help, whereas a tier one or somebody that's been doing the aerospace or automotive, they've had to been doing this for many years. So you do have to, you have to be cognizant of that. You have to understand, as an auditor, the client and what you're dealing with. And, of course, not consulting, but we do owe clients an understanding of this. So a lot of times what Intertech will do is we have different trainings for clients, public trainings that we offer on the corrective action to help them. We also have handouts that auditors have to work with clients on that. But it's definitely a learning curve for many organizations.
Understood. Well, what are some of the requirements of an effective correction action? And kind of peeling back the layer of this onion now, what are actually some of the working methods in which you do this?
Yep. So there's 4 keys to a solid corrective action. Correction, we talked about that. Stop the bleeding, fix a specific issue. Then we get into the root cause. Okay, so why did this caliper on the floor not get calibrated? Why? So we need to get down to the root cause, the true root cause of the issue. We'll get into problem-solving methods, but 5 why analysis is one it's usually good to use. Once you get down to the root cause, then whatever that is, you're going to determine your corrective action. That's the 3rd item in what's needed. And the 4th then is verification of effectiveness. I want to jump back to the root cause, because the root cause is not a reinstatement of the problem. A lot of times you might see that it's just a reinstatement of the problem. The root cause is not a direct cause. Okay, so in a direct cause, someone not following a process, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, is a direct cause. But just because I didn't follow the process, we have to go further and ask why. Why didn't I follow the process? Was the system, too hard? Did we not have a backup? Whatever the case may be. So we have to be very careful in determining the true root cause. A good way to do that is to keep asking the question why. Why did the caliper not get calibrated? Well, because we didn't have a calibration system. Why didn't we have a calibration system? It was understood that we could do this, without a gauge track type system. So you need to keep peeling those layers back till you truly get down to not the direct cause, but the root cause. And then corrective action follows that.
So you touched on problems, which I think was a great entry here, because there are some problem-solving methods that are really effective for doing this. So you talked about 5 whys. What are some of the other ones, or maybe give us a little bit more about 5 whys first, and tell us some other problem-solving methods that work well as well.
5 why is if I had to say was my favorite, it's my favorite, because it's a simple corrective action. You just keep asking why until you literally can't ask why anymore. You've peeled that onion back. There's no more whys. So that's a good problem-solving method. With the 5 why, there sometimes is consideration of why did it occur, so we get a root cause from there. And why did it escape? So you have 2 different root causes. And some of your more complex you need to understand up front, okay, how did this happen in the first place for occurrence? And in the escape, how in the devil did it get out of my building? So you have two potential root causes. Okay, so those are two. Some people like to use the 8D. 8D is simply getting down to the root cause. You're still going to keep asking why. And another one that it's really worth looking at is the process FEMA. As our 2015 standards of 9001 and 14,000 take off, and they are risk-based, a process FEMA identifies as potential failures, and then you follow through what's preventative, how did we detect it, and what action we're doing to mitigate that. So that kind of solves a problem of risk-based for clients in that, but that's another, I'll say, simple tool for corrective action. You can always do Pareto analysis. You can always talk about Ishikawa diagrams, those type of things. But I would say your key ones would be the 5Y, occurrence, escape, and the process FEMA is also a widely used tool.
So Paula, now what type of evidence, let's talk about evidence for a minute because it's very important, I think, for anybody who's going to look at an organization, as you will, from an outside perspective, an auditor perspective. So what type of evidence are you looking for to prove and be provided that effectiveness is there and that it's ensured?
And you know, you need to do that by, I say in God we trust, all others show me. So because you and I are talking in a conference room and you tell me, well, yeah, I fixed it and this is what I did, is not verification of effectiveness. I'm going to walk out to where the problem happened. I'm going to dig into what they have fixed, and I'm going to sample to make sure I have physical, I'll say paper evidence that the problem was fixed. And a lot of times that's where we seem to fail, not only in the organization, but also in the auditing. So physical evidence that this system was wiped clean is very important. So it might be a paper, it might be a training record, it might be, okay, we need to go look at a comparator. We need to have specific evidence of how we close that nonconformance. So objective evidence really, by definition, is I'll say paper for lack of a better word, but something that really tells me this system is fixed.
So this really requires you to have a pretty deep understanding of what that organization is doing. I mean, you really need to kind of roll up your sleeves along with the people in that organization, really look at what they're doing and understand their value stream and their process flows and really kind of get down to it. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And that's where, if we do this correctly, we're adding value to the organization because they're improving. And that's where, you know, if we sell it right and we audit right, you know, any good business would improve with a solid corrective action. I think a lot of times, you know, maybe in the past history, nonconformances issued, people go, I don't like nonconformances. Well, you know, it needs to be looked at, the fact that it's going to make me better. As an example, Intertech gets audited anywhere from 36 to 40 times a year. And when accreditation bodies or external parties, whatever, come and audit us, and they write findings, I'm always looking to make sure that they're value-added findings. But we don't look at that as, oh, no, you know, I can't get a finding. So there's another kind of I'll say learning curve that we're going through, maybe from some of the older, 5-10 years ago to more current of understanding that. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Well, no problem. Well, Paula Oddy, we've been chatting with you today. Paula, of course, is the Technical and QMS Program Manager at Intertech. Paula, thanks so much for joining us today, helping us better understand corrective actions and how they lead to better organizational performance.
Thank you very much for having me. Look forward to talking to you again.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Paula.
Thanks.